16-year-old Ilara Vance kept her gaze fixed on the scuffed linoleum as she navigated the bustling corridors of Crestwood Academy. Her slender 5'2" frame, framed by oversized spectacles and a cascade of dark hair she habitually tucked behind her ears, allowed her to melt into the background, a ghost in the vibrant tapestry of high school life. She preferred it that way. With her mother's career as a field medic necessitating 5 relocations in 8 years, Ilara had learned that anonymity was the most reliable form of self-preservation. What none of her new classmates at Crestwood knew was that Ilara had been immersed in the rigorous disciplines of Wing Chun and Aikido since the age of 8. Her father, a former Special Forces operative, had insisted she master self-defense after a harrowing incident at their base housing when she was a child. 8 years of relentless training had forged her into a formidable force, a lethal whisper disguised as a quiet scholar. She possessed the ability to neutralize assailants twice her size in mere seconds, but Ilara had made a solemn vow to her parents. Her formidable skills were reserved solely for moments of genuine peril. Crestwood Academy, a sprawling complex of brick and glass nestled in the heartland, housed nearly 1,800 students from diverse walks of life. Its social hierarchy was a brutal, clearly delineated landscape, with the popular elite reigning supreme from their perch in the upperclassmen wing. Ilara had been attending for 3 weeks, successfully maintaining her low profile by eating lunch alone in the quiet study hall, choosing circuitous routes between periods and speaking only when directly addressed by instructors. The school's undisputed sovereign was Serena Thorne, a 17-year-old senior with platinum blonde hair, an array of expensive designer attire, and a cruel streak as wide as the nearby river. Her inner circle comprised Chloe Finch, an athletic redhead with a razor-sharp tongue, and Brooke Sterling, a brunette whose family's considerable wealth seemed to grant her immunity from consequence. Together, they orchestrated the social order through intimidation, public humiliation, and calculated malice. Ilara's carefully constructed invisibility began to fray on a somber Tuesday morning in late October. She was hurrying to first-period chemistry, arms laden with textbooks, when she inadvertently brushed against Chloe near the lockers. The contact was negligible, barely disturbing Chloe's meticulously straightened hair, yet the reaction was explosive. "Watch it, nobody!" Chloe snapped, her green eyes flashing with disproportionate fury. Several students paused, sensing the imminent drama. "My apologies," Ilara murmured, adjusting her glasses and attempting to continue toward her class. "Apologies," Chloe repeated, her voice escalating. "Do you have any conception of what this ensemble cost?" She gestured dramatically at her pristine designer sweater. Ilara's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but she forced herself to remain composed. "I offered my apologies. It was an accident." "An accident?" Serena materialized beside Chloe, like a predator sensing weakness. "Look what we have here, girls. The little mouse believes she can simply collide with people and walk away." Brooke completed the triangle, effectively pinning Ilara against the lockers. "I don't think she grasps the pecking order around here," she added with a saccharine smile that failed to reach her eyes. Ilara felt her muscles instinctively tense, her body registering the threat assessment. 3 aggressors, confined space, multiple escape routes compromised. Her training automatically began calculating angles and vulnerabilities, but she compelled herself to breathe slowly and maintain a passive stance. "I truly need to reach my lesson," Ilara stated quietly, attempting to step around them. "Lessons can wait," Serena declared, placing a manicured hand on Ilara's shoulder to halt her. "I believe you require some instruction in decorum first." The hallway was now filling with students, forming a loose circle around the confrontation. Ilara noted how many averted their gaze uncomfortably, but made no move to intervene. She recognized the familiar pattern from previous schools: bystanders who preferred to witness another's suffering rather than risk becoming targets themselves. "What's your designation, Mouse?" Chloe demanded. "Ilara." "Ilara what?" "Vance." Serena's lip curled into a sneer. "Another charity case, I presume. You types always forget your place around here." Ilara's hands clenched involuntarily at the casual dismissal, but she maintained her composure. She'd heard worse at other schools. The key was not to react, not to grant them the satisfaction they craved. "I seek no conflict," Ilara said firmly. "I merely wish to proceed to my lesson." "But conflict found you," Brooke sing-songed, "and we haven't decided if you've absorbed your lesson yet." The harassment persisted intermittently over the ensuing weeks. Ilara's books would mysteriously vanish from her locker, only to be discovered scattered in the girls' washroom. Anonymous notes were slipped into her backpack, scrawled with epithets that made her cheeks burn. During lunch, if she dared to sit in the cafeteria, food would accidentally spill near her table, or someone would jostle her chair hard enough to make her drop her tray. Ilara endured it all with quiet dignity, just as she had at previous schools. Her parents had taught her that tormentors fed on reactions, that exhibiting weakness only exacerbated the situation. She reminded herself daily that this was transient, that high school was merely a brief stop on the path to her true life. But Serena and her cohort seemed frustrated by Ilara's lack of reaction. They were accustomed to tears, pleas, or angry outbursts that would justify escalating their torment. Ilara's calm detachment only fueled their determination to break her. The situation reached its zenith 3 weeks before Halloween. Ilara was working late in the quiet study hall on a research project when she finally packed her belongings at nearly 5 o'clock. The halls were mostly deserted, with only a few students lingering for after-school activities. She was walking toward the main exit, her backpack heavy with books, when she heard familiar laughter echoing from the direction of the athletic complex. Ilara's stomach dropped as she recognized Serena's distinctive giggle, followed by Chloe's harsh cackle. She quickly altered her direction, hoping to avoid them entirely, but the sound of quickening footsteps behind her confirmed her worst fears. "Well, well, well," Serena's voice carried down the empty hallway. "Look who's attempting to vanish." Ilara kept walking, hoping they would lose interest, but the footsteps quickened behind her. Soon she found herself surrounded near the Hall of Achievements, with Serena directly in front of her and Chloe and Brooke flanking her sides. "Going somewhere, little shadow?" Chloe asked with mock sweetness. "Home," Ilara replied simply, adjusting her backpack straps and searching for an escape route. "Not so fast." Serena stepped closer, invading Ilara's personal space. "We've been attempting to engage you for weeks, but you keep fleeing. That's impolite." Ilara's training activated automatically, assessing threats and calculating responses. Serena was approximately 5 inches taller and 20 pounds heavier, but soft from a lack of real physical activity. Chloe possessed muscle from sports, but poor balance and coordination. Brooke was the least physical threat, but positioned to block the nearest exit. "What is it you desire?" Ilara asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Deference," Serena declared dramatically. "You glide through this school as if you're superior to everyone else, as if you don't have to abide by the same regulations as the rest of us." "I believe myself no better than anyone," Ilara said honestly. "I merely wish to be unmolested." "But that's not how it functions here," Chloe chimed in. "Everyone has a stratum in the social order, and your stratum is the lowest." Brooke nodded enthusiastically. "We're merely clarifying your position." Ilara felt a familiar calm washing over her, the same centered feeling she experienced in the dojo when facing a challenging opponent. Time seemed to slow as her senses sharpened, absorbing every detail of her surroundings and her opponent's positioning. "I comprehend perfectly," she said quietly. "You three are insecure tormentors who elevate yourselves by crushing those who cannot retaliate." The words hung in the air like a gauntlet thrown. Serena's perfectly made-up face flushed crimson with anger, her composure cracking for the first time. "Pardon me," she hissed, stepping even closer until she was inches from Ilara's face. "You heard me," Ilara replied, no longer attempting to appear meek. Something had shifted inside her. A boundary had been crossed. "You are pitiable," Chloe gasped audibly. "Did she just call us pitiable?" "I believe she did," Brooke added, her voice rising with excitement at the prospect of escalation. Serena's hands clenched into fists at her sides. "You insolent wretch! Do you have any conception of who you address?" "Three individuals whose zenith was high school," Ilara said with deadly calm. The strike came without warning. Serena's right hand whipped across Ilara's left cheek with enough force to snap her head to the side and make her glasses slide down her nose. The sound echoed through the empty hallway like a gunshot. For a moment, everything was perfectly still. Ilara slowly reached up and adjusted her glasses, her cheek burning from the impact. She could taste blood where her teeth had cut the inside of her mouth. "Does that bring you solace?" she asked, her voice eerily calm. Serena looked momentarily taken aback by the lack of tears or cowering, but quickly regained her cruel confidence. "Considerably. Perhaps now you'll learn to show some deference." "Or what?" Ilara asked, straightening to her full height. "Another blow?" "Perhaps I will," Serena threatened, raising her hand for another strike. This time, Ilara was ready. The moment Serena's hand began to move, Ilara's training took over completely. 8 years of muscle memory and reflexes activated like a switch being flipped. She caught Serena's wrist in midair with her left hand, gripping it with enough pressure to make the other girl gasp in surprise. "Desist," Ilara said quietly, her voice carrying a new authority that made all 3 girls freeze. "Release me," Serena demanded, trying to pull her arm free, but Ilara's grip was like a steel trap. "I cautioned you," Ilara said, almost sadly. What happened next took less than 5 seconds, but felt like slow motion to everyone watching. Ilara twisted Serena's captured wrist while stepping to the side, using the momentum to redirect the taller girl's balance, sending her tumbling to the floor with a pained grunt. Chloe recovered first, rushing at Ilara with an incoherent shout of rage. Ilara sidestepped effortlessly, extending her leg to trip the charging girl. Chloe's own momentum sent her sprawling into the Hall of Achievements with a loud crash that sent awards scattering across the floor. Brooke, seeing her friends taken down in seconds, turned to flee. She made it exactly 3 steps before Ilara's hand clamped down on her shoulder, spinning her around. A single finger pressed against a pressure point in Brooke's neck made her knees buckle, and she collapsed to the floor, conscious but unable to move. Ilara stood in the center of the fallen tormentors, her breathing still completely even, her posture balanced and ready. The entire confrontation had lasted less than 10 seconds, and she had barely broken a sweat. "I sought to depart," she said, addressing all 3 girls who were now looking at her with expressions of shock, fear, and growing comprehension. "I sought to ignore you. I sought to be unseen, but you denied me." Serena was slowly sitting up, one hand pressed to her lower back where she'd hit the floor. "What in the abyss are you?" she gasped. "Someone you gravely misjudged," Ilara replied simply. She reached down and picked up her backpack, which had fallen during the altercation. "I've trained in martial disciplines since childhood. My father was special forces. I could have rendered all 3 of you incapacitated without effort." Chloe was pulling herself up from the scattered trophies, a small cut on her forehead where she'd hit the glass case. "You're unhinged," she whispered. "No," Ilara corrected. "I am disciplined. There is a distinction." She looked at each of them in turn. "You wish to know why I've been avoiding you? It's not because I'm afraid. It's because I was attempting to shield you from yourselves." Brooke was still on the ground, tears streaming down her face as sensations slowly returned to her limbs. "My limbs. I can't feel them," she whimpered. "Temporary," Ilara assured her. Sensation will return in a few minutes. I struck a nerve point, not your spine. The sound of running footsteps echoed down the hallway as Officer Miller, the security guard, rounded the corner. He stopped short at the scene before him, 3 popular girls in various states of dishevelment and injury, with Ilara standing calmly in the center, holding her backpack. "What transpired here?" he demanded, his hand moving instinctively to his radio. "They assailed me," Ilara said simply. "I defended myself." "That's a lie!" Serena struggled to her feet, her perfect hair now a tangled mess. "She attacked us. She's some kind of combat maniac." Officer Miller looked skeptical. Ilara was still standing exactly where he'd found her, showing no signs of aggression or agitation. The 3 other girls, meanwhile, were clearly the ones who had taken the worst of whatever had happened. "Miss Vance," he said carefully, "I'm going to need you to accompany me to Headmistress Albright's office." "Certainly," Ilara agreed. "Shall I await their recovery, or will someone else assist them to the nurse?" Her calm cooperation seemed to confuse Officer Miller even more. Most students involved in altercations were either still aggressive or upset. Ilara appeared completely composed, almost serene. "I'll call for additional assistance," he said, speaking into his radio to request backup and medical evaluation. As they waited, Serena continued her protests. "She's perilous. She could have killed us. She needs to be expelled." Ilara remained silent, knowing that anything she said would likely be used against her. She'd been through this process before at other schools, though never quite like this. Headmistress Albright was a tall, stern woman in her 50s who had been running Crestwood Academy for over a decade. She'd witnessed every type of student drama imaginable, but the situation in her office was unusual, even by her standards. Ilara sat calmly in one chair, while Serena, Chloe, and Brooke occupied the others, all still showing signs of their encounter. The school nurse had confirmed that none of them had serious injuries, though Brooke complained of lingering numbness and Chloe needed a bandage for her cut. "I've heard 4 different narratives of what transpired," Headmistress Albright began, "and frankly, none of them make complete sense. Miss Thorne, you allege that Miss Vance attacked you without provocation." "That's precisely what happened," Serena insisted. "We were merely conversing with her, and she went berserk. She's been trained to eliminate people or something." Headmistress Albright turned to Ilara. "Miss Vance, what's your account of events?" Ilara took a deep breath. "They cornered me near the Hall of Achievements. Miss Thorne struck me across the face. When she attempted to strike me again, I defended myself using martial arts techniques I've been learning since I was 8 years old." "She fabricates," Chloe burst out. "We would never strike anyone." "Actually," Headmistress Albright said, consulting a paper on her desk, "we possess surveillance cameras in that hallway." She turned her computer monitor so everyone could see it. "Would you care to review the footage?" The grainy, black-and-white video clearly showed the entire incident. There was Ilara, surrounded by the 3 other girls. There was Serena stepping forward aggressively. There was the obvious motion of a strike, Ilara's head snapping to the side. Then came Ilara's lightning-fast response, taking down all 3 aggressors in seconds. The room was silent as the video ended. "Miss Thorne," Headmistress Albright said sternly, "you just witnessed yourself assaulting another student on camera. Would you care to revise your statement?" Serena's face had gone pale. "It wasn't... she provoked us." "By existing?" Ilara asked quietly. "By walking through the hallway." Headmistress Albright held up a hand for silence. "Miss Vance, your response was certainly dramatic, but the video clearly shows you were defending yourself against an unprovoked attack. However, I'm concerned about the level of force you employed." "I employed the minimum force necessary to neutralize the threat," Ilara replied. "I could have seriously injured all 3 of them if I'd wished. Instead, I use techniques designed to disable without causing permanent damage. She's a menace, Brooke finally spoke up, her voice still shaky. What if she decides to attack someone else? Ilara turned to look at her. I've been attending this school for over a month. In that time, have I exhibited any aggression toward anyone? Have I initiated any conflicts? Have I threatened anyone? Headmistress Albright consulted Ilara's file. According to your records, Miss Vance, you've never been in trouble at any of your previous schools. No disciplinary actions, no complaints from instructors or students. Because I don't initiate conflicts, Ilara said simply. I conclude them. The headmistress studied the four girls carefully. Miss Thorne, Miss Finch, Miss Sterling, you are all suspended for 3 days for assault and harassment. When you return, you will be required to attend anger management counseling and complete community service hours. What about her? Serena demanded, pointing at Ilara. Miss Vance will not be suspended, as she was clearly acting in self-defense. However, she turned to Ilara, I strongly recommend that you consider channeling your skills into something more constructive. Have you thought about joining the self-defense club or assisting with their classes? Ilara felt a genuine smile cross her face for the first time in weeks. I would be honored. As they left the headmistress's office, Serena made one last attempt at intimidation. This isn't concluded, she hissed as they walked down the hallway. Ilara stopped and turned to face her. Yes, it is, and if you or your associates ever lay hands on me again, my restraint will diminish. The quiet certainty in her voice made all three girls take an involuntary step backward. Word of the confrontations spread through Crestwood Academy like wildfire. By the next morning, everyone knew that the quiet new girl had single-handedly taken down the school's most feared tormentors. The story grew more elaborate with each telling, but the core facts remained the same. Ilara Vance was not someone to trifle with. The changes were immediate and dramatic. Students who had never spoken to Ilara before nodded respectfully when she passed in the halls. Teachers looked at her with new interest, particularly the athletics coaches who began making subtle inquiries about her training background. Most importantly, the culture of fear that Serena and her crew had cultivated began to crumble. Ilara found herself approached by students who had their own narratives of bullying and harassment. Some wished to learn to defend themselves, others just wanted to share their experiences with someone who understood. For the first time in her academic career, Ilara felt like she belonged somewhere. The self-defense club, which had been struggling with low membership, suddenly found itself overwhelmed with new applicants. Ilara became an unofficial instructor, teaching basic self-defense techniques to students who had never imagined they could protect themselves. 2 weeks after the incident, something unexpected happened. Ilara was eating lunch with her new friends from the self-defense club when Serena approached their table. The entire cafeteria seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would happen. "May I converse with you?" Serena asked quietly, looking genuinely nervous for the first time since Ilara had known her. Ilara studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Very well." They walked to a quiet corner of the cafeteria, far from listening ears. Serena fidgeted with her designer handbag, clearly struggling with what to say. "I wish to offer my contrition," she finally said, the words coming out in a rush. "For everything, the strike, the harassment, all of it. It was reprehensible." Ilara waited, sensing there was more. "I've been contemplating your words a great deal," Serena continued, "about us being insecure and our zenith being high school. And you were correct. I've been so consumed by being popular and feared that I forgot about being a decent human being." "What prompted this change?" Ilara asked. Serena looked embarrassed. "My younger sister, she's in 8th grade, and she asked me if it was true that I was a tormentor." Hearing her utter that word, she shook her head. "I don't wish to be someone my own sister is ashamed of." Ilara felt her anger softening slightly. Influence doesn't necessitate cruelty. "I understand that now," Serena said, "and I know this doesn't rectify everything I've done, but I aspire to be better, to do better." "It is a genesis," Ilara acknowledged. When Serena returned from her suspension, she was noticeably different. The cruel comments ceased, the strategic humiliation ended. She still maintained her social status, but she no longer wielded it like a weapon. Chloe and Brooke, following their leader's example, also dialed back their aggression significantly. The transformation wasn't just limited to the former tormentors. Other students who had witnessed Ilara's stand began finding their own voices. The culture of silent complicity that had allowed harassment to flourish started to crack as more people spoke up for those being targeted. Ilara's reputation as the girl who had single-handedly altered the social dynamics of Crestwood Academy followed her through the rest of the semester. She received respect not just for her fighting skills, but for how she had used them responsibly. She had shown restraint when she could have caused serious harm, and she had channeled her abilities into helping others rather than seeking retribution. As winter recess approached, Ilara reflected on how much her life had changed since that day near the Hall of Achievements. She had friends now, true friends, who valued her for who she was, rather than fearing what she could do. She had found a purpose in teaching others to protect themselves. Most importantly, she had learned that sometimes standing up for yourself meant not just defending your body, but defending your right to exist peacefully in the world. The shy, unseen girl who had walked the halls of Crestwood Academy in fear was gone, replaced by someone who understood that true strength came not from the ability to inflict harm, but from the wisdom to know when that ability was necessary. Ilara Vance had finally found her place, and it was exactly where she belonged, standing tall, speaking clearly, and helping others find their own strength. On the last day before winter recess, Ilara found a card in her locker. It was signed by dozens of students, thanking her for making Crestwood Academy a safer haven for everyone. At the bottom, in handwriting she recognized as Serena's, was a simple message. "Thank you for revealing who I could become, instead of who I was." Ilara smiled as she tucked the card into her backpack. She had come to Crestwood Academy expecting to hide until graduation. Instead, she had discovered that sometimes the best way to disappear is to stand up and be seen for exactly who you are, someone who refuses to be anyone's victim, and someone willing to help others find that same courage within themselves.